The actual situation with the chronological aspects of the Book of Revelation is far more complex and muddled than quibbling over a handful of sources and a century or two. John's apocalypse has likely been misplaced by over a millennium, a topic we will address later in this series. But first, there is the question of authorship. Modern scholars can't even agree on who wrote the book in the first place. It would seem a simple thing to identify the author of the Apocalypse. After all, the writer does identify himself as John. Yet this is not the case. Scholars have debated the identity of John for centuries. The writer of the Apocalypse identifies himself 4 times. But since he does not further identify himself, say as an apostle, his identity becomes a matter of conjecture. Since modern scholars cannot agree, the author of the Apocalypse is given the nondescript name John of Patmos. The good news is that we do not need to rely on scholarly debate. We know the exact identity of the author of the book through Joseph Smith. Early in his ministry, Joseph asked the Lord about the meaning of certain passages in the Book of Revelation. In his history, Joseph refers to John as Saint John, meaning John the Apostle. The Lord responded and confirmed the identity of the author, calling him John the Revelator, again referring to John the Apostle. The Book of Mormon provides even more definitive evidence that the John of the Book of Revelation is John the Apostle. The angel Jesus Christ informed Nephi that it would be John the Apostle who would see and write down the rest of the vision. He did so in the book we now know as the Revelation of St. John the Divine. The fact that the Apostle John was the author becomes important in determining the chronology of his book. One of the problems for mainstream scholars, both ancient and modern, is the limitation of John's mortality. Man, on average, lives only so long, normally under 100 years. So, when it is presumed that John is already an adult at the death of Jesus Christ, circa 33 AD, then the writing of the Apocalypse, even at an extreme old age, cannot have occurred much later than 100 AD, and more likely before. In fact, it is the age factor that is a primary reason for scholars to reject John the Apostle as the author of Revelation. John would have been too old to write the book during the reign of Domitian, which of course is the choice of most scholars for the date of composition. Other proposed dates for the writing of the Apocalypse are summarily dismissed for this reason. If Domitian's reign is disqualified due to John's age, then Trajan's reign, which followed Domitian's, is simply unthinkable. But Latter-day Saints have no such conundrum. We have noted in an earlier series that John the Apostle was translated, meaning he had been given power over death. Jesus Christ gave John to remain a mortal being, or tarry until his second coming. This means that John is alive today and has not yet suffered death. It also means that there is no limitation as to when he wrote the Book of Revelation. He could have written it at the time of Domitian, assumed to be almost 2,000 years ago. Or he could have written the book 1,000 years ago, or 500 years ago, or even more recently.